Hey everybody, I am on the chapter on Jainism in your book. So I'm asking that you follow along because I'm going to ask you to write some stuff down when you're done. So please follow along while you're reading in the book. So Jainism, page 175, is considered to the most rigorously vegetarian of the world's religions. And Jains honor even the most microscopic sentient beings and attempt to avoid harming life at all in any form. That's probably the biggest item of note in Jainisms. Page 176 and 177. Well, let me go back to 175 first. So in 2008, a massive $6 million temple was completed in Los Angeles, California, close to the Knott's Berry Farm amusement park. Known as the Jain Center of Southern California, the temple serves about 1,000 Jain families who attend weekend prayers at the facility. Inside the Jain Center, there are 24 white marble figures representing 24 liberated souls who exemplify non-violent, simple lives. The figurines were paraded through several city blocks past Korean and Salvadoran markets before being installed in the center's temple. It features a library containing more than 8,000 books, a temple, a children's room, and study rooms. It is a result of decades of influence of a growing number of generally well-educated and affluent, that means wealthy, Jains in the region who started meeting for prayer in the home of Dr. Manabahi Mehta, a retired urologist and fellow Jain. He says here on 176 now, we don't want to kill any living things. We won't eat meat. We don't eat fish, none of the living things. Though we believe vegetables also have life, that is the least conscious level of life. The Jain community, second paragraph, numbers about 6 million worldwide. And down farther in that paragraph, it says Jainism is a distinct religion of India that has adopted and reinterpreted the key concepts of its predecessor, Hinduism. So it's very similar to Hinduism, but it does have some differences. Like Hinduism and Buddhism, Jainism attempted to address the central problem in Indian life. That is how to find release from karma and the continual round of rebirths entailed in samsara. Jainism provides one answer to this important question. Both Jainism and Buddhism are South Asian religions with founders and organized doctrines. They each have organized rituals, including worship, prayer, a special set of scriptures, a monastic tradition, particular ideas of orthodoxy, and heterodoxy. And heterodoxy doesn't conform to orthodox standards and beliefs. So it's a little different than orthodoxy. And even conversion. Jainism's founder lived around the time of the Buddha in the 6th century before Christ. On page 177, it says that there's a misconception that Jainism, I'm about halfway at the end of the second paragraph, that Jainism was a variant branch of Hinduism rather than a distinct religion. It is not a branch of Hinduism. It is a distinct religion. Most Jains affirmed the possibility that anybody could be liberated. Opposed to the class, they are also opposed to the class system, which is called Varna, and considered heterodox by some Hindus, which means they don't conform to some orthodox viewpoints. A word that they're going to use a lot here in the chapter is the word asceticism. And while it has the potential to appeal to a wide variety of people, its strict asceticism would make it less attractive. Asceticism means you are strict and hard on oneself, usually for religious reasons. So the last paragraph there, the term Jaina, from which we get the word Jain, is derived from the term Jina, a general name for the supreme souls that are totally free from all defilements. A Jina is a spiritual conqueror, a title given to 24 great teachers or Ford finders, known as Tirthankaras. And then at the end of the page there, having taught the true doctrine of nonviolence and the way to attain freedom from rebirth. So that's what they're trying to do, be nonviolent and get out of the karmic rebirth system. So on page 178, the religion of Jainism was initiated by Vardhamana Mahavira. This was an anti-Brahmanical group, so they were against Brahman. They were against stuff that was Hindu. Jain tradition says that while in his mother's womb, Lord Mahavira followed the doctrine of nonviolence, causing his mother no pain. I don't know how you do that in the womb. I don't really understand. Tradition notes that Mahavira grew up enjoying the 5-fold joys of sound, touch, taste, sight, and smell, the 5 sense pleasures he would later renounce. So then on page 179, Jains affirmed that around 30 years of age, Mahavira renounced the world, became a wandering ascetic, and followed his ascetic rule of Parshva, which was a yoga practitioner. Sorry for the yawning. Jain tradition holds that for 12 years, Mahavira followed a path of extreme asceticism, practicing severe fasting, silence, meditation, and pulling out his hair, while highly respecting all living beings, including plants and insects, without harming them. So on page 181, which it's not marked in this, but not 180. On 180, you got that picture of the statue. And then on 181, it talks about Lord Mahavira's death. He died by following the rite of voluntary self-starvation after teaching about his insights for 30 years. And in fact, if you jump ahead to the very last page, I think it's the very last page of this thing, 212, there's a picture there of a guy who obviously was practicing starvation as well. They're trying to control themselves and control their food intake. And that little box there, that Christian Reflections box, it just talks about the fact that Lord Buddha, Lord Mahavira, and Christ all had their enlightenment experiences around the age of 30. 182, karma is and this is the second paragraph, karma is the perfect law of cause and effect. Actions done today will come to fruition. Each Indian religious tradition emphasizes a different aspect of action, physical or mental, and offers corresponding ways to achieve liberation. So that's talking about karma and how you can get out of the repetitive dying and coming back. It also says on 183, there are two distinct phases in the process of liberation. The first is enlightenment, when karmic obstructions have been eliminated and the jiva is isolated and pure, remaining embodied until the moment of death. And the second phase is when liberation itself occurs, marked by permanent freedom of the soul. So it does share a lot of similarities to Hinduism. So there is a Jain path of liberation, and I believe there's a chart of this. I think there was a chart. Yeah. They're called the 9 Nav Tattvas. Illustrate a detailed focus on the nature of karma and the elimination of karmic buildup of the soul. So it's got this, I'm not going to read them because I don't know that it's going to stick with you very much, but those are the 9 Nav Tattvas. And then on page 186 in the gray box for Christian Reflections, it says, Christianity also affirms the utter importance and eternal nature of the spirit. Yet a difference between Christianity and Jainism is that Christianity maintains a distinction between the self, soul, and God. So that's one way that we're actually different. Okay. I did want to, 188, I thought was interesting. It says there are 4 causes of bondage, but then it lists 5 things. So that was a little interesting. Require the cultivation of opposite qualities for their removal. And it talks about the perversion of faith, non-restraint, carelessness, passions, activities, and disciplines. So then I was going to fast forward with you to 192. Here it breaks down like different aspects of Jainism. So it has severe ascetic practices, which we've already talked about, where they don't want to be given to feelings of the flesh. You don't want to be given over to hunger and all these types of things. They also really pay attention to cosmology. It is the reflection of the world and the universe as a meaningful whole, whether the universe is understood as being an independent organism or the expression of a transient being or beings. And the last sentence there says, or 2 sentences, according to Jain cosmology, the universe runs on its own cosmic laws with no creator deity. They do not believe that the world was created by God, who initiated the creative diet. According to Jain tradition, the belief that the cosmos was created by a god is a false and evil doctrine. So they do not believe there was a god that created it. Page 195 in the first paragraph, midway, it says, as such, there are many gods in Jainism, and their numbers are increasing as living beings gain liberation and enter the realm of moksha. And then at the bottom of the second paragraph, the universe is very vast. We are very small. We are nothing when compared to this stupendous universe. In it, we are like an atom. We are insignificant. This makes us humble and dissolves our pride. It was one of the ways that the thinkers thought about themselves as Jainists. So on 197, it talks about reality, and it says all reality consists of either jiva, which is the soul or the spirit, or ajiva, all matter, everything that is not jiva. So it's either the things that are alive and the souls and spirits, or everything else. That's kind of interesting. 198, on the top, it says the larger body, ajiva, the larger the soul that fills it. Damaging living beings of any kind is a serious matter, resulting in bad karmic consequences. Furthermore, Jainism classifies all living beings according to the number of senses they possess, with the highest sense being on top and the lowest sense being on the bottom. And then on the top of 199, the higher the life form, the heavier the karmic burden of its destruction. Given that living beings are in wind, water, and fire, it is impossible to live without harming some living being. It is better to liberate one's soul from this life, which is fraught with the constant killings of living beings. Each breath inhales and destroys living bodies. When one walks, each step has the real potential of destroying some minute life form, thereby adding to one's karmic weight. And on the bottom of 199, a Jain ideal is to recognize the impermanency of the material world while affirming the permanency and the necessity of purifying the soul. The central virtue of Jainism is ahimsa, non-injury, non-violence. The law of compassion in the body, mind, and spirit. That's on 200. And on 201, it talks about the different levels of violence. So there is intentional violence, which is the worst. Violence undertaken by ordinarily daily actions of a householder. I guess that would mean like if you hit somebody with a car or something. 3, violence perpetuated through one's occupation. And 4, violence as self-defense. And then there's practices and liberation. So as you might imagine, by the discussion of nonviolence and the impossibility of following the doctrine absolutely and literally, there are different strategies to gain liberation. So a bunch of different ways you can gain the liberation. Jain people need to uphold the 5 great vows as well, which means they cannot engage in activities that promote violence, such as military service, farming, fishing, or any work. This is on 206 that requires that produces weapons or distributes intoxicants. But it says they tend to be among the world's wealthiest group in India today, despite this, for they are quite active in banking, law, and real estate. So then these are the vows they undertake. On the bottom of 206, they do 5 meditations against injury, 5 against falsehood. Actually, there's 11 things here. So it says, additionally, they've been vocal opponents to the development of weapons of mass destruction. The 5 great vows, I don't know why there's 11 of them then. I'm not really sure why that is. That's a little confusing to me. It does say on 207 that they have to produce daily prayer, and then they do it again in the evening. And it says on 209 in the middle of the page, although no one God exists in Jainism, the many gods addressed and venerated in worship are the pure souls that have attained liberation. They are remembered in prayer. So they pray for those that die as they become a god. They divided into 2 sects on 209. Sects as in sects, so different sections of what they are doing. Okay. I always think that word is so hard to say, like in a video. Sects. It's a hard word for me to pronounce. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. So I wanted to make sure we're not talking about genders here. We're talking about different groups. Okay, so that's really it for this. I may put up another little video, and there's going to be 5 questions that I want you to do and turn in a private comment to me. And then I also want you to leave something interesting for the group.